Hungary, it would appear to be, is charting a different course. It says it's willing to go along with Russia's scheme to convert gas payments from euros to rubles through Gazprom Bank. Claire Sebastian showed us earlier, Hungary relies more than most EU countries on Russian gas. And the country says Slovakia is paying for its gas in the same way. That's 22%. Joining me now is Péter, who's Hungary's foreign minister. Minister, I don't necessarily want to get into... I don't want to pass words with you, with me saying this and you saying, well, that's not true and that the other. I want to get to the spirit of the thing. And the spirit of the thing is that the rest of Europe seems reluctant, indeed opposed to buying Russian oil and gas. You seem to be very willing to go along with Vladimir Putin's Gazprom Bank scheme.
First of all, good afternoon, and thank you so much for the invitation again. I'm happy to be back to you, Richard. The thing is the following, that gas supply and oil supply of a country is not a matter of philosophy or communication or ideology or politics. This is a matter of physics. The fact is that we are determined by infrastructure. 85% of our gas supply comes from Russia and 65% of our oil supply comes from Russia. Why? Because this is being determined by infrastructure. This is not for fun. We have not chosen this situation. Simply, this is the physical situation in Central Europe. There are no alternative gas sources, no alternative delivery routes, which would make it possible for us to get rid of the Russian oil and Russian gas in the upcoming couple of years. We have done a lot in order to diversify. We have built all the interconnectors with 6 of the 7 neighboring countries. So in case there's a new gas source being explored somewhere in the neighborhood, we would be happy to buy gas from there. If ExxonMobil had made its final decision to exploit gas from the Black Sea in Romania, now we would be in a much better situation. But since there have been no new gas resources and no new gas fields explored in the last years, unfortunately we have no other choice than rely on the Russian energy sources in the upcoming couple of years. But this is, once again, not for fun. This is the physical determination for our country.
But there is a feeling, there is a view, a sort of a perception that Hungary's position is not as united with the EU as other countries, or indeed with NATO, for example, for example, the transmission or the distribution of military weapons through Hungary, which until now you've not allowed to take place. The view is Hungary is not united with the rest.
You know, I think you made it very rightly at the beginning, because you said it's a perception, it's a view, it's a feeling, but this is not the reality. Hungary has given its consent to all the 5 packages of sanctions so far in the European Union. We have given our consent. We just made it very clear that since this physical determination I tried to describe to you in my previous answer, in order to preserve the European unity, do not come forward with sanctions which would stop our country and stop our economy to operate. On the other hand, when it comes to NATO and when it comes to delivery of weapons, I wanna make it very clear that Hungary stands for the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Ukraine. We are helping Ukraine a lot on the humanitarian side. The biggest ever humanitarian action of Hungary has been made, and 640,000 refugees we have received from Ukraine so far. We supply them, we give them accommodation, we offer them jobs, and we help them as much as we can. And when it comes to weapon deliveries, we made it very clear that we are not delivering weapons, and we do not allow the transit through Hungary.
But that's what Ukraine...
I tell you why. I tell you what.
No,
Sorry, yes.
Minister. That is what Ukraine says it needs. That's what the US has said more of its allies and partners need to provide. So whilst one can admire the humanitarian effort, what Ukraine is asking for is help, is the very thing you're refusing to do.
Yeah, I understand that, but if you look at the list of the EU member states and if you look at the list of the NATO member states, you will see that not all of us, not all of the EU member states, not all of the NATO or the EU member states are delivering weapons. The fact is that you have to see what is the most important duty now for the Hungarian government is to make it sure that we can guarantee the security of Hungary and the Hungarian people. And in case there are weapon deliveries from Hungary, in case there are weapon deliveries through Hungary, we take the risk of being involved in the conflict, which we definitely would like to avoid. And we would like to avoid the situation that the Russians shoot to the Hungarian-Ukrainian border or to parts of Ukraine which are populated by Hungarians. This is something that we really would like to avoid. So that's why we made it clear that we are not delivering weapons, but we are standing for Ukraine and we are carrying out the biggest humanitarian action of our history ever in order to help the Ukrainian people.
So when you look at the actions in Moldova and the breakaway region of Moldova, and you see the way Russia is alleged to be fomenting dispute amongst Russian-speaking people. Now, look at the map, shows quite clearly. I mean, Hungary, you've got Romania between the two of you. But do you believe that President Putin is doing his damnedest best to sow as much discord, disarray and chaos amongst Europe as possible at the moment?
Well, look, we spoke very clearly. We condemn this war. We condemn that Russia has attacked Ukraine. We stand for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. And we will stand as we are standing for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Moldova as well. We hope there's going to be no attack on Moldova. And we do hope that this war is going to be over as soon as possible because there are people dying on a daily, hourly, minutely basis. Unfortunately, it's really heartbreaking to see families torn apart, fleeing to Hungary and other countries. So we do hope that this war is going to come to an end as soon as possible. And we condemn this war started by the Russian Federation.
Let's talk about your own domestic problems. So the EU says in a letter...
Do we have any?
Well, you may well have if you haven't got them so far. The EU says that about the Commission says the issues and their repetition talking about issues of rule of law in Hungary demonstrate a systemic inability, failure or unwillingness on the part of the Hungarian authorities to prevent decisions that are in breach of applicable laws. Now, a process has begun first time that could end up with your budget being fined, sanctioned or cut. You've been warned about this, Minister. You've not taken the necessary actions and the EU is going to get tough.
Richard, this is a clear political debate. This is a blackmailing against Hungary. These are false accusations. These have nothing to do with reality. You know, I think it's very visible. The day this procedure has been launched against Hungary was like 1 or 2 days after our elections, where we won again landslide. A record support to the government after 12 years in office. We have never had so many MPs so far. We have a constitutional majority on our own. And we understand that the liberal mainstream in Brussels cannot digest this. The fact is that the people are supporting what we are doing. And if you do what your people support, means that it's a clear and true democracy. So all these accusations against us are purely political. This is not rule of law. This is not rule of law. This is the rule of blackmail against Hungary. I'm telling you very clearly and loudly.
No. That's with respect, Minister. That argument is like, you know, if you ask children do they want ice cream, they'll say yes, we'll have it all the time. But that's not the way you necessarily.
I don't agree with that.
So what happens when the policies you are promoting, even if they are liked by the people or your supporters in country, are against EU values as the Commission, the Council and the courts have found they are?
But they are not against the European values. They are not liked by some bureaucrats and some political leaders in Brussels. This is the truth. We act according to the national legislation and according to the European legislation as well. We are debating about political issues. We are debating about perceptions. They have never put forward one concrete issue which we could discuss whether this law in its concreteness is being against the European values or or not. They speak about perceptions, like you have just quoted. The fact is that they cannot digest that the Hungarian people did not want the liberal mainstream to rule and govern Hungary. They wanted us, this Christian democratic government, to continue in office, and they have to respect the will of the Hungarian people. This is very anti-democratic, that they do not respect what the Hungarian people want as a future of our country.
I want to finish with a quote from your Prime Minister, if I may, sir. He said after the election victory, and congratulations on the full term, he said, but Prime Minister Orbán said, we never had so many opponents, Brussels bureaucrats, which is what you've just been saying, the international mainstream media, I guess you might include, well, who knows what you might include, and the Ukrainian president, talking about President Zelensky. Is it appropriate? I mean, is it appropriate to call President Zelensky an opponent when he's fighting a war against Russia, a war which you are also basically saying should not, you are against as well? And at the height of this, your Prime Minister describes the President as an opponent.
In order to understand why Prime Minister has made this statement, you should be aware of what happened during the last 1 or 2 weeks just prior to our elections. How the Ukrainian government or some actors on behalf of the Hungarian government, so the Ukrainian government, tried to interfere into the elections in Hungary. And the statements made by President Zelensky at the very end of our election campaign, which were pretty hostile to us, were absolutely inappropriate. He shouldn't have made that. We understand his struggle. We are standing for Ukraine, as we said. We are receiving the refugees from Ukraine. And in this context, what he has said about us, how they tried to interfere into our election campaign, was totally unacceptable. That was the reason why Prime Minister has made this statement.
In a word, a yes or no or a maybe will do. Do you support Ukraine's membership for the EU?
We made it already very clear. When the 8 presidents of certain European countries in Central and Eastern Europe has initiated it in a letter, we made it very clear that we support this initiative. We made it very clear. It was sometimes in February, as far as I remember.
Minister, it is good to see you. Thank you, as always. You're very kind to turn up and discuss these matters in forceful manner. I'm grateful. Thank you.